The reason they hate me is because they fear me, Muhammad Ali said in an interview. On the same day, thousands of miles away, Michael Jackson was telling a completely different journalist, perhaps being misunderstood is the price of success. This is the compelling story of friendship between two legends who reached the pinnacle in two different disciplines, with two different personalities, but faced the same racial challenges, and the remarkable moments when their lives touched. If these kinds of stories catch your attention, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Where are you watching us from right now? Let us know in the comments below. On the surface, Muhammad Ali and Michael Jackson represented two entirely different worlds. Ali, the brash, outspoken heavyweight boxing champion whose words could sting as sharply as his punches; Jackson, the soft-spoken musical prodigy whose voice rarely rose above a gentle whisper in conversation. One dominated the most physical of sports with his imposing presence, while the other conquered the entertainment world with otherworldly dance moves and pitch-perfect vocals. Yet beneath these apparent contrasts lay remarkable similarities and a friendship that spanned decades, touching both men's lives at crucial moments and providing mutual support during their most challenging times. Their connection, which began in the late 1970s and lasted until Ali's death in 2016, offers a fascinating window into the shared experiences of two African-American icons who changed their respective fields forever while navigating the complexities of race, fame, and public scrutiny in America. Both men were born into America's segregated past, Ali in Louisville, Kentucky in 1942, and Jackson in Gary, Indiana in 1958. They came of age in a nation where racial boundaries were being challenged but remained firmly entrenched. Both experienced the sting of discrimination from an early age, yet both possessed extraordinary talents that would eventually force the dominant culture to acknowledge their genius, however reluctantly. Their trajectories to fame followed different timelines but similar arcs. Ali, then Cassius Clay, burst into public consciousness with his gold medal performance at the 1960 Olympics in Rome, when he was just 18 years old. 4 years later, he shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston for the heavyweight title, and shortly thereafter announced his conversion to Islam and his new name, acts of self-definition that sent shockwaves through American society. Jackson's rise began even earlier, joining his brothers in the Jackson 5 at age 5 and becoming the group's breakout star by the time he was 11. Like Ali, he was a prodigy whose natural gifts were evident from the start, and like Ali, he would eventually assert control over his identity and career in ways that challenged industry norms. By the time their paths first crossed in the late 1970s, both men had already experienced the dizzying heights of fame and the complicated realities that came with it. Both understood what it meant to be simultaneously adored and resented, celebrated for their talents yet often denied the full humanity afforded to their white counterparts. Their first documented meeting occurred in 1977, when a 19-year-old Michael Jackson was transitioning from child star to adult artist. The Jackson 5 had recently left Motown Records for Epic, rebranding themselves as the Jacksons, and Michael was beginning to take greater creative control of his career. Ali, meanwhile, was still near the height of his boxing powers, having reclaimed the heavyweight championship in the legendary Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman in 1974 and successfully defended his title multiple times. The meeting took place at a charity event in Los Angeles, where photographs captured an awestruck young Jackson shaking hands with the already legendary Ali. According to those present, Jackson was uncharacteristically nervous, barely able to speak above a whisper when introduced to the boxing great. Michael was completely starstruck, recalled Bob Giraldi, who would later direct Jackson's Beat It video and was present at that first meeting. Here was this kid who had already performed before millions, but in front of Ali, he became almost painfully shy. Ali, though, had this incredible ability to put people at ease. He spoke gently to Michael, asked about his music, and you could see the tension just melt away. This first encounter, brief as it was, made a lasting impression on Jackson. In his 1988 autobiography Moonwalk, he mentioned meeting Ali as one of the most memorable moments of his early career, writing, "He had a presence that was electric and an aura of greatness that wasn't just about his physical strength. When he spoke to me, I felt like I mattered to him in that moment, which was a powerful feeling. What began as a brief, formal interaction would evolve over the years into a meaningful friendship based on mutual respect and shared experiences. Both men understood what it meant to be exceptionally gifted Black Americans in fields historically dominated by white power structures. Both had risen from humble beginnings to unprecedented heights of fame and success. And both would eventually face intense media scrutiny, public backlash, and complex legal battles that threatened to overshadow their professional accomplishments. Throughout the late 1970s, as Jackson worked to establish himself as a solo artist and Ali's boxing career began its final chapter, they encountered each other occasionally at industry events and award shows. Those who observed them noted how their initially formal interactions gradually warmed into something more familiar and comfortable. Music producer Quincy Jones, who would go on to produce Jackson's most successful albums, recalled seeing them together at a NAACP Image Award ceremony around this time. They were like opposite sides of the same coin, Muhammad loud and playful, Michael quiet and observant. But you could see the respect flowing both ways. Muhammad treated Michael like a fellow warrior, not just some kid singer, and Michael soaked up everything Muhammad said like he was receiving wisdom from on high. Their next significant encounter came in 1980, shortly after Jackson had released Off the Wall, the solo album that would establish him as a major adult artist. Ali was nearing the end of his boxing career, preparing for what would become a disappointing loss to Larry Holmes later that year. At a reception following a United Negro College Fund benefit where Jackson had performed, Ali approached the young singer with words that, according to Jackson's later recollections, profoundly affected him. "You keep doing what you're doing, little brother," Ali told him. "They're not ready for us to have too much power, but we take it anyway, inch by inch. Your music is reaching places my fists never could." This encouragement came at a pivotal moment in Jackson's career. Though Off the Wall had been a critical and commercial success, Jackson was still fighting for creative control and proper recognition in an industry where Black artists were often marginalized. According to Walter Yetnikoff, who was president of CBS Records at the time, Jackson often expressed frustration about the marketing and promotion of his music, feeling that his race limited how the label positioned him. Michael would point to the example of Ali, Yetnikoff later wrote in his memoir. He'd say, "Ali didn't let them define him, and I won't either." There was a defiance in him that people didn't always see beneath the gentle exterior, but it was there, and it seemed to strengthen whenever Ali's name came up. The early 1980s marked significant transitions for both men. Ali's boxing career ended with losses to Holmes in 1980 and Trevor Berbick in 1981, forcing the 39-year-old to confront life beyond the ring. Jackson, meanwhile, was about to release Thriller, the album that would catapult him from star to global phenomenon. During this period, they maintained contact primarily through phone calls, with Ali occasionally reaching out to offer advice or encouragement as Jackson navigated his exploding fame. According to those close to Jackson, he valued these conversations enormously, seeing in Ali a predecessor who had experienced the kind of global recognition he was beginning to encounter. Michael kept a list of people he could call when the pressure got too intense, recalled Frank Dillio, who became Jackson's manager in 1984. It wasn't a long list, maybe 5 or 6 names, but Muhammad Ali was on it. Sometimes he'd call him at 2 or 3 in the morning, and from what Michael said, Ali never minded. They understood something about each other that most people couldn't grasp. The parallels between their careers became even more apparent during the Thriller era. Released in late 1982, the album not only shattered sales records but also broke down racial barriers on radio and the newly launched MTV, which had notoriously featured very few Black artists before Jackson. Like Ali declaring, "I am the greatest," in a sport long dominated by white champions, Jackson's ascension to the undisputed King of Pop status represented a seismic shift in American popular culture. Both men had redefined the possibilities for Black excellence in their fields, forcing mainstream America to acknowledge and celebrate their talents despite persistent racial prejudices. And both experienced the double-edged sword of unprecedented fame, adoration from millions alongside intense scrutiny and resentment from those uncomfortable with their success. During this period, Ali and Jackson maintained contact through occasional phone calls and meetings at events. Though neither man spoke much publicly about their friendship, Jackson was famously private about his personal relationships, while Ali's public statements were increasingly limited by the early effects of Parkinson's disease. Those close to both men attested to the genuine connection they shared. Longtime Ali photographer Howard Bingham recalled witnessing a phone call between the two during the height of the Thriller phenomenon. Muhammad picked up the phone and his whole face lit up. "Michael, my brother," he said. They talked for maybe 30 minutes, and Muhammad was more animated than I'd seen him in months. When he hung up, he told me, "That boy is changing everything, just like we did. But he's doing it without getting hit in the head." This mutual admiration was evident in small gestures throughout the 1980s. Jackson attended several events honoring Ali's legacy, while Ali made appearances at key moments in Jackson's career. When Jackson received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1984, footage shows Ali in attendance, watching proudly from the sidelines. A particularly meaningful interaction occurred backstage at the 1984 Grammy Awards, where Jackson won a record-breaking 8 awards for Thriller. According to producer David Jest, a longtime friend of Jackson who was present, Ali visited Jackson's dressing room before the ceremony to wish him luck. Muhammad took Michael's hands in his, and remember, these were the hands of a man who had been the most powerful puncher in the world, and he said to Michael, "Your hands are doing more for race relations than my fists ever did," Jest recounted in a later interview. Michael was moved to tears. He kept that moment private, but I know it meant everything to him to hear that from someone he admired so deeply. The mid-1980s saw both men expanding their humanitarian efforts. Ali had begun using his global fame to advocate for charitable causes and promote interfaith understanding, while Jackson co-wrote We Are the World and established the Heal the World Foundation. Though their approaches differed, Ali more directly political, Jackson more studiously apolitical, both recognized the responsibility that came with their unprecedented platforms. Their friendship took on new dimensions in the late 1980s and early 1990s, as both men faced significant challenges. Ali's health was deteriorating due to Parkinson's syndrome, while Jackson found himself dealing with intensifying media scrutiny about his changing appearance, his eccentric lifestyle at Neverland Ranch, and eventually, allegations of improper conduct with minors. It was during this period that their mutual support became most evident. Jackson was among the celebrities who contributed financially to the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center, established in Phoenix in 1997. More personally, Jackson made private visits to Ali's home in Michigan, where the two would spend hours in conversation away from the media spotlight. Lonnie Ali, who married Muhammad in 1986, later described these visits. "Michael would just show up sometimes, no entourage, no cameras. He and Muhammad would sit in the study, talking quietly or sometimes just sitting in companionable silence. They both understood something about fame and its costs that few others could comprehend. There was no need to explain or justify themselves to each other." These private meetings offered both men a rare space of unconditional acceptance during periods when they were facing intense public criticism, Ali for his declining health and occasionally controversial political statements, Jackson for the increasingly bizarre public persona that was overshadowing his musical accomplishments. They had different ways of handling pressure, but they recognized the same forces at work, explained Alex Haley, who had worked on Ali's autobiography and also interviewed Jackson. Both were dealing with a public that wanted to control them, define them, own them in some way. With each other, they could just be themselves without all that weight of expectation. One particularly meaningful interaction occurred in 1996, when Jackson was preparing for his History tour amid intense negative publicity following the first allegations against him, which had been settled out of court. Though Ali's health had declined significantly by this point, he made the effort to attend a pre-tour event in New York, his presence serving as a powerful show of support for the embattled pop star. When Muhammad walked in, and it took real effort for him by then, Michael became emotional, recalled one concert promoter who was present. He embraced Ali and they had a private word. Later, Michael told me, he didn't have to come. He knows what it's like when the world turns against you, when they try to reduce you to a caricature. That meant everything to Michael at that moment. The support was mutual. When Ali was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame that same year, Jackson sent a video message that was played at the ceremony. In it, he spoke not just of Ali's athletic prowess but of his courage in standing up for his convictions, a clear reference to Ali's refusal to be drafted during the Vietnam War, which had cost him his title and nearly his career in the 1960s. "You showed all of us that one man's voice and one man's courage can change the world," Jackson said in the message. "Before anyone else, you lived by the principle that your convictions matter more than others' convenience." These words reflected Jackson's deep admiration for Ali's moral courage, a quality that stood in stark contrast to Jackson's own more cautious approach to public controversy. Throughout his career, Jackson largely avoided explicit political statements, preferring to address social issues through the more oblique medium of his music. Ali, on the other hand, had never shied away from using his platform to advocate for his beliefs, regardless of the consequences. This fundamental difference in their public personas made their private connection all the more intriguing. According to those who knew them both, Jackson admired Ali's boldness while Ali respected Jackson's artistic integrity and commitment to perfectionism. Each recognized in the other a different but equally valid response to the challenges of being a high-profile black man in America. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of their friendship was how each man served as a kind of alternate vision of what the other's life might have been. Ali, with his outspoken defiance of authority and willingness to be hated for his beliefs, represented a road not taken for the more conciliatory Jackson. And Jackson, with his carefully maintained privacy and avoidance of explicit political statements, embodied a different approach to black celebrity than Ali's confrontational style. Yet despite these differences in temperament and approach, their fundamental experiences as black men who had achieved unprecedented levels of fame and success created a bond that transcended such distinctions. Both understood the double standards they faced, the extra scrutiny their actions received, and the ways in which their racial identity was alternatively erased or overemphasized according to the convenience of the mainstream media narrative. A telling example of their shared understanding came during a joint appearance on a television special in 1993. When the white interviewer asked a somewhat leading question about race relations in America, suggesting that things had improved dramatically since the 1960s, both men exchanged a quick glance before Ali responded with characteristic directness. "Things change on the surface," he said. "But underneath, many of the same prejudices remain. They just wear nicer clothes now." Jackson, normally reluctant to address racial issues directly in interviews, nodded in agreement and added, "Sometimes the cage becomes more comfortable, but it's still a cage. The challenge is to recognize it even when it's gilded." This exchange illustrated how, in each other's company, both men felt free to express perspectives they might have tempered in other contexts. Their shared experiences created a space of trust and mutual understanding rare for individuals of their stature. The late 1990s and early 2000s brought new challenges for both men. Ali's Parkinson's syndrome advanced, increasingly limiting his mobility and speech. Jackson's legal troubles intensified with a second round of allegations in 2003, leading to a trial that, though it ended in acquittal, took an enormous toll on his mental and physical health. During this difficult period, they maintained contact primarily through intermediaries, with Jackson sending messages of support through Ali's family and Ali occasionally dictating brief notes of encouragement to Jackson. Though their direct communication became less frequent due to the constraints of Ali's condition and Jackson's increasingly isolated lifestyle, the bond between them remained. In 2003, when Jackson was facing the most serious legal challenge of his life, Ali made a public statement of support that received relatively little attention amid the media frenzy surrounding the case. Through his spokesman, Ali said simply, "Michael Jackson is a good person. I've known him many years. He deserves the presumption of innocence like anyone else, and I'm praying for my friend." These words, coming from a man widely revered for his moral authority, meant a great deal to Jackson during a period when many former friends and associates had abandoned him. According to Jackson's brother Jermaine, Michael kept a printed copy of Ali's statement on his nightstand throughout the trial. Following Jackson's acquittal in 2005, he retreated from public life, spending time abroad before beginning to work on what would have been his comeback tour, This Is It. During this period, he made one final visit to Ali at his Arizona home, a meeting that remained private until years later when Lonnie Ali mentioned it briefly in an interview. "It was a poignant visit," she said. Both of them were changed by all they'd been through. Muhammad could barely speak by then, and Michael seemed fragile, almost transparent somehow. But there was still such love and respect between them. They communicated more through looks and gestures than words, but it was profound to witness. As the 1990s progressed and into the 2000s, both men became increasingly isolated from public life, Ali due to his advancing Parkinson's, Jackson due to the increasing controversies surrounding him and his retreat into the private world of Neverland Ranch. Yet they maintained contact, with phone calls and occasional visits continuing until Jackson's death in 2009. According to family members, Ali was deeply affected by Jackson's passing. Though his ability to communicate was severely limited by that point, he insisted on watching the memorial service on television and became visibly emotional during the tributes. Muhammad just kept shaking his head and whispering, too young," Lonnie Ali told a reporter. He understood better than most the pressures Michael had faced. There was a bond there that went beyond friendship. It was a recognition of shared experience, of having walked similar paths despite their different worlds. In the years following Jackson's death, Ali's health continued to decline until his own passing in 2016. Among the many tributes that poured in was a statement from the Jackson estate acknowledging the special relationship the two men had shared. Michael always spoke of Muhammad Ali as an inspiration, not just for his athletic achievements but for his courage in standing up for his beliefs regardless of the cost. Their friendship was based on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the unique burdens of extraordinary fame. The story of Ali and Jackson's friendship offers more than just an interesting footnote in the biographies of two iconic figures. It provides a lens through which to view the complex intersection of race, fame, and American identity in the latter half of the 20th century. These two men, born a generation apart but connected by similar struggles, exemplified different strategies for navigating a culture that simultaneously celebrated their talents and questioned their authenticity, that made them wealthy beyond imagination while often denying them full humanity. Their friendship also challenges the simplified narratives often constructed around both men. Ali is frequently portrayed as an uncompromising warrior for social justice, while Jackson is sometimes dismissed as having abandoned his racial identity in pursuit of crossover success. The reality, as their relationship suggests, was far more nuanced. Ali had moments of compromise and commercial calculation, just as Jackson had instances of subtle resistance and racial pride that were often overlooked by critics. What people miss about Michael is how deeply he understood the politics of being a black entertainer in America, observed cultural critic Nelson George, who interviewed both men at different points in their careers. He might not have made speeches like Ali, but every boundary he broke, MTV, the Super Bowl, the global megatours, was a political act in its own way. And Ali recognized that, even if many critics didn't. Similarly, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was close to Ali and met Jackson several times, noted, Muhammad wasn't just about confrontation, though that's how he's often remembered. He understood strategic engagement too. He and Michael had different styles, but they were fighting the same fight, to be fully human in a society that wanted to put them in boxes. Perhaps what united them most fundamentally was the experience of being transformed from individuals into symbols, Ali as the embodiment of black pride and resistance, Jackson as the ultimate entertainment icon who transcended racial categories. Both understood the power and the burden of symbolism, the way it amplified their influence while sometimes erasing their humanity. They were both trapped by their own mythology, suggested biographer Gerald Early, who has written extensively about Ali. The public demanded they remain frozen in certain roles, Ali as the defiant warrior, Jackson as the innocent musical genius. Neither was allowed the full range of human complexity, and I think they recognized that shared dilemma in each other. In their private moments together, away from the roar of the crowds and the flash of cameras, Muhammad Ali and Michael Jackson found something rare and precious: understanding without explanation, acceptance without judgment, friendship without agenda. In a world that had commodified nearly every aspect of their beings, their connection remained genuine, a quiet testament to the power of shared experience to bridge even the most diverse lives. Their relationship also reminds us that icons are, first and foremost, human beings, complex, contradictory, and in need of the same basic emotional connections as anyone else. Despite their otherworldly talents and global fame, both Ali and Jackson sought what all people seek: to be understood, to be accepted, to be seen for who they truly are rather than what others project onto them. In the years since their deaths, both men have been subjected to countless reappraisals, their legacies continually reinterpreted through shifting cultural lenses. Yet the friendship they shared remains a touching reminder of their humanity, two extraordinary individuals who found in each other a rare peer who truly understood the unique pressures they faced. "Fame is a heavy burden," Ali once said in an interview late in his life. "Very few understand its weight." Michael was one who did. Similarly, in a rare candid moment during a 1993 interview, Jackson said of Ali, "He walked the path before me, showed me it was possible. When everyone doubts you, when they try to make you something you're not, having someone like him in your corner means everything." As we look back on the remarkable lives and careers of these two cultural giants, their unlikely friendship offers a valuable perspective on both men, a glimpse beyond the public personas into a private connection based on mutual respect and shared experience. It humanizes them in a way that neither hagiography nor criticism can achieve, revealing the persons behind the personas. As Ali once said of Jackson in a rare interview about their friendship, "He fights in his way, I fought in mine. But we're in the same ring, facing the same opponent." When asked to identify that opponent, the typically verbose Ali offered just a single word: ignorance. In the final analysis, perhaps that was the truest foundation of their unlikely bond, two extraordinary men who had each, in their own way, spent a lifetime fighting to be seen for who they truly were, rather than what others wanted them to be. In each other, they found not just a friend, but a fellow warrior who understood the battle.